The greatest prison most people will ever enter has no walls, no locks, and no guards standing watch. It cannot be seen from the outside because it exists entirely within the mind. It is built one opinion at a time, one unnecessary attachment after another, until a person wakes up one day and realizes that almost every emotion they experience is being dictated by someone else. A stranger's words determine their confidence. A friend's silence determines their peace. A supervisor's criticism determines their self-worth. A family's expectations determine their identity. Without realizing it, they have surrendered the authority over their own emotional world. The ancient Stoics believed this was the greatest form of slavery imaginable. Not physical slavery, but emotional slavery. A condition where your happiness depends upon variables you can never fully command. This is why so many intelligent people remain exhausted. They chase certainty in an uncertain world. They seek permanent approval from temporary people. They hope circumstances will finally cooperate, only to discover that life has already invented another challenge before they have finished celebrating the previous victory. Freedom begins the moment you recognize this pattern. It does not begin when life becomes easier. It does not arrive when difficult people disappear. It does not wait until fortune smiles upon you. It begins the instant you realize that your greatest source of suffering has never been reality itself, but the meaning you assign to reality. This realization is both terrifying and liberating. Terrifying because it removes every excuse. Liberating because it reveals that no one has possessed the power to control your inner life without your permission. The Stoics did not promise comfort. They promised something infinitely more valuable. They promised independence of the soul. They taught that while storms will continue to appear, you can become the mountain that remains unmoved beneath the clouds. Their wisdom has survived empires, wars, plagues, and revolutions because human nature has never changed. The faces are different, the technology is different, but the emotional battles remain exactly the same. Today, we will uncover 9 Stoic truths capable of breaking the invisible chains that keep so many people emotionally controlled. These are not motivational slogans. They are principles tested by philosophers who endured exile, poverty, betrayal, political intrigue, illness, and constant uncertainty without surrendering their peace. The first truth may challenge everything you believe about emotional pain. The first Stoic truth is this: no one controls your emotions. They only present the opportunity for you to surrender them. This distinction changes everything. Imagine 2 people hearing the exact same insult. One becomes furious, replaying the words for weeks, losing sleep, and imagining endless arguments that never happen. The other hears the insult, reflects for a moment, and continues with life almost untouched. What changed? Not the words, not the speaker, only the judgment. The Stoics insisted that events themselves possess no emotional power. Power is granted by interpretation. This idea feels almost offensive when first encountered because it challenges the instinct to blame the outside world for our inner turmoil. Yet if emotions were created directly by events, then every person would react identically to every circumstance. But they do not. Some collapse under criticism, while others become stronger. Some panic during uncertainty, while others become more creative. Some view failure as humiliation, while others recognize it as education. The event remains constant. The judgment transforms everything. This does not mean emotions are fake or that pain is imaginary. It means emotions are deeply connected to the stories we tell ourselves about what happens. The insult hurts because we conclude it diminishes our worth. Rejection devastates us because we decide it defines our value. Failure crushes us because we interpret it as evidence that we are incapable. The Stoic interrupts this chain before it gains momentum. Instead of asking, "Why did this happen to me?" the Stoic asks, "What judgment am I adding to this event?" That single question creates space. Within that space lies freedom, Most people never discover this because they confuse immediate emotional reactions with permanent emotional truths. They believe that because they feel something intensely, it must therefore represent objective reality. But feelings are weather. Character is climate. The wise person learns not to obey every emotional storm that passes through the mind. This discipline requires practice because the mind naturally exaggerates threats. Evolution rewarded those who noticed danger quickly, even when danger existed only in possibility. Today, this ancient survival mechanism transforms harmless comments into personal attacks and ordinary setbacks into imagined catastrophes. The Stoic recognizes the mind's tendency toward drama and quietly refuses to participate. Not through denial, not through suppression, through examination. Every emotional reaction becomes an invitation to investigate rather than immediately obey. That is where mastery begins. The second truth is one that modern society desperately resists. Your peace increases in direct proportion to your willingness to disappoint people. Many spend their entire lives performing. They perform competence because they fear appearing ignorant. They perform kindness because they fear rejection. They perform success because they fear judgment. Eventually, they forget where the performance ends and the authentic self begins. The tragedy is not simply exhaustion. The tragedy is dependence. Every performance requires an audience. Once your identity depends upon approval, you become emotionally vulnerable to every opinion surrounding you. The Stoics warned against this subtle form of bondage. If your confidence rises whenever someone praises you, then it must also fall whenever someone criticizes you. Both outcomes surrender your emotional stability to forces outside your control. Consider how many decisions people make solely to avoid disappointing others. Careers are chosen to satisfy parents. Relationships continue long after love has disappeared because loneliness seems more frightening than authenticity. Dreams remain hidden because public failure appears unbearable. The price of universal approval is the abandonment of your own conscience. A Stoic accepts something most people spend decades avoiding. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will dislike you. Someone will criticize your choices without possessing the full story, and none of this changes what is true. Once you stop demanding that everyone agree with your life, your emotional world becomes astonishingly peaceful. You discover that disagreement is not disaster. Criticism is not destruction. Disapproval is not proof of failure. These are merely opinions crossing your path, like clouds drifting across the sky. They appear, change shape, and disappear. Only if you chase them do they consume your attention. The third truth is perhaps the most uncomfortable. Your strongest emotional attachments often become your greatest sources of manipulation. Attachment itself is not the enemy. Dependency is when your happiness depends entirely upon another person's consistency, affection, validation, or presence. You unknowingly surrender your freedom. Now every delayed message creates anxiety. Every shift in tone creates suspicion. Every disagreement becomes an existential threat. The emotional burden placed upon the relationship becomes unbearable because one person has become responsible for another's inner stability. The Stoics believed love should emerge from strength, not need. You appreciate people, you cherish them, you support them, but you never ask them to become the foundation upon which your entire emotional existence rests. Why? Because every human being changes. Health changes. Circumstances change. Priorities change. Even the most loving relationships experience seasons of distance. If your peace depends exclusively upon another person's behavior, then your peace will always remain fragile. True emotional freedom allows you to love deeply without clinging desperately. It allows gratitude without possession. Connection without dependence. Presence without fear. This paradox confuses many people because modern culture often equates attachment with devotion. The Stoics disagreed. They believed that the deepest love emerges when both people remain internally whole. Only then does affection become a gift instead of a demand. The fourth truth separates emotionally resilient individuals from those constantly overwhelmed. Silence protects. More strength than explanation ever will. Observe how quickly people defend themselves. A rumor appears. Immediately they explain. Someone misunderstands them. Immediately they justify. Someone criticizes their decision. Immediately they seek validation. Every explanation reveals something subtle, a desire to control another person's opinion. But another person's opinion has never belonged within your control. The Stoics understood that attempting to manage every misunderstanding wastes enormous emotional energy. Not everyone deserves access to your reasoning, but not everyone seeks truth. Some seek only reaction. Every unnecessary defense invites another attack because it signals emotional investment. The strongest individuals often possess the remarkable ability to remain silent while others desperately demand explanations. Silence is not weakness. Silence often represents complete confidence. It says, "My character will speak longer than my words." History repeatedly demonstrates this principle. Those obsessed with defending every accusation gradually become consumed by public perception. Those committed to living honorably allow time to reveal reality. This requires tremendous patience because the ego craves immediate vindication. It wants every misunderstanding corrected today. It wants every false accusation erased immediately. Wisdom recognizes that time accomplishes what endless arguments never can. Protect your peace by becoming selective about which battles deserve your voice. Most do not. The fifth truth transforms suffering itself. Every obstacle contains the material required for your next level of strength. This idea lies at the heart of Stoicism. Life does not ask whether you welcome hardship, but it delivers hardship regardless. The only remaining question concerns your response. Most people waste adversity by resisting it. They repeatedly ask why unfortunate events happened instead of asking what these events now require from them. The Stoics embraced a radically different perspective. The obstacle becomes the path. Difficulty becomes training. Loss becomes instruction. Failure becomes refinement. This does not romanticize pain. It redeems it. Imagine the blacksmith shaping steel. The metal does not become stronger despite the fire. It becomes stronger because of the fire. Likewise, courage cannot exist without fear. Patience cannot exist without frustration. Resilience cannot exist without hardship. Every virtue admired throughout history required resistance before it could emerge. This realization changes the meaning of adversity forever. Instead of viewing suffering as evidence that life has turned against you, begin viewing it as resistance preparing you for greater responsibility. The person who has never faced disappointment possesses fragile confidence. The person who has never experienced betrayal possesses untested judgment. The person who has never endured uncertainty possesses shallow courage. Life strengthens through challenge. Nature has always worked this way. The tree growing alone on a windy cliff develops deeper roots than the tree sheltered within a quiet valley. So too does character. Every challenge invites the question that defines the Stoic life. Will this experience control me, or will I transform it into wisdom? That single decision determines whether hardship becomes a prison or a teacher. The remarkable truth is that external events cannot prevent this transformation. Only your interpretation can. And that realization returns us to the beginning. Freedom has never depended upon perfect circumstances. It has always depended upon mastering the one place where true authority exists, your own mind. The sixth Stoic truth is one that many people spend their entire lives avoiding because it strips away one of the ego's greatest illusions. You cannot control how people remember you, and the moment you stop trying, you recover an extraordinary amount of peace. Human beings possess an almost irresistible desire to shape their reputation. We want to be understood, appreciated, admired, and remembered correctly. We replay conversations in our minds, wondering whether we said the right thing. We lose sleep over misunderstandings. We become anxious over rumors, false impressions, and opinions that may not even exist outside our imagination. The Stoics recognized that this endless pursuit is not merely exhausting, it is impossible. Every person interprets reality through the lens of their own experiences, fears, ambitions, and biases. Two people can witness the same event and walk away with completely different conclusions. One calls you confident. Another calls you arrogant. One admires your discipline. Another believes you are cold. One respects your silence. Another mistakes it for weakness. Which opinion is correct? Perhaps none of them. Perhaps each contains only a fragment of truth filtered through another person's perspective. This is why chasing a perfect reputation becomes an endless race with no finish line. Even history's greatest figures could not escape criticism. The wisest philosophers were mocked. The greatest leaders were accused of weakness and tyranny in equal measure. Men and women whose ideas transformed civilizations still died with enemies convinced of their failure. If they could not secure universal approval, why should you expect to? The Stoic therefore shifts attention away from reputation and toward character. Reputation exists in other people's minds. Character exists in your own actions. One belongs to fortune, the other belongs to you. When you understand this distinction, criticism begins losing its emotional grip. Praise also loses some of its intoxicating power. You become less interested in appearing virtuous and more interested in becoming virtuous. That subtle change creates enormous freedom because authenticity requires far less energy than performance. You no longer ask, how do I make everyone admire me? Instead, you ask, did I act according to my principles today? The answer to that question remains entirely within your control. And that is enough. The seventh Stoic truth reveals why so many people remain emotionally exhausted despite living in an age of unprecedented convenience. Your attention is your greatest possession. Whatever controls your attention gradually shapes your character. Every day, countless voices compete for your focus. News demands outrage. Social media demands comparison. Advertisements demand dissatisfaction. Endless opinions demand emotional reactions. Modern life has become a marketplace where attention is constantly bought and sold. Most people participate without noticing the cost. Every unnecessary argument steals concentration from meaningful work. Every hour spent comparing your life to someone else's weakens gratitude for your own. Every emotional reaction to distant events beyond your influence quietly drains your inner strength. The Stoics understood that attention is finite. You cannot give it away endlessly without becoming spiritually bankrupt. This is why they practiced deliberate mental discipline. They chose carefully what deserved entrance into their minds. Imagine your mind as a magnificent garden. If every stranger is permitted to throw seeds into the soil, weeds eventually outnumber flowers. Soon, the beauty disappears beneath uncontrolled growth. The same principle governs your inner life. Every resentment you rehearse, every envy you entertain, every unnecessary fear you nurture, every insult you replay, each one occupies valuable mental space that could have been devoted to wisdom, creativity, gratitude, or purposeful action. Emotional freedom, therefore, requires guarding your attention with remarkable discipline. Not because the world lacks problems, but because your energy must first remain available for the responsibilities directly before you. The Stoics often reminded themselves that life is astonishingly brief. No one reaches the end of life wishing they had worried more. No one regrets failing to win every pointless argument. No one wishes they had spent additional years obsessing over strangers' opinions. Instead, People regret the opposite. They regret allowing distraction to replace presence. They regret postponing meaningful work. They regret sacrificing inner peace to temporary noise. Every morning presents the same invisible decision. Will you invest your attention, or will you allow others to spend it for you? Your future character depends upon that answer. The eighth Stoic. Truth may be the hardest to accept because it demands complete honesty with yourself. The greatest enemy you will ever overcome is not another person. It is the undisciplined version of yourself. People often imagine that emotional control comes from defeating external obstacles. The Stoics argued otherwise. Before conquering the world, conquer your impulses. Before correcting others, correct your habits. Before demanding justice from life, cultivate discipline within yourself. Consider how often emotional suffering begins with internal weakness rather than external hardship. A careless word escapes in anger and destroys years of trust. An uncontrolled desire sacrifices long-term fulfillment for temporary pleasure. A moment of jealousy poisons a healthy relationship. An hour of laziness becomes months of regret. The external consequence always begins with an internal surrender. This is why radical self-discipline stood at the center of Stoic practice. Discipline is not punishment. It is liberation. Every time you resist an unhealthy impulse, you prove that your reason governs your emotions rather than the reverse. Every time you choose patience over anger, purpose over distraction, honesty over convenience, you strengthen the invisible muscles of character. Like physical strength, emotional strength develops gradually. No one becomes resilient through theory alone. Reading wisdom is valuable. Practicing wisdom transforms lives. This is where many people stop. They consume books, videos, podcasts, and endless motivational speeches while avoiding the uncomfortable daily actions required to embody those lessons. The Stoics would gently remind us that philosophy was never intended to become entertainment. It was meant to become a way of living. Every ordinary moment presents an opportunity for practice. The impatient customer ahead of you becomes training for composure. The unexpected setback becomes training for adaptability. The harsh criticism becomes training for humility. The lonely evening becomes training for self-sufficiency. Nothing is wasted. Every experience either strengthens your character or exposes where further work remains. Viewed this way, life itself becomes a continuous school of virtue. The final truth unites every lesson we have explored. Freedom is not found by controlling the world. Freedom is found by mastering yourself. This simple sentence contains a lifetime of wisdom. Most people reverse the equation. They believe they will finally become peaceful once circumstances cooperate. Once they earn more money. Once everyone respects them. Once the perfect relationship appears. Once uncertainty disappears. But life has never promised any of these conditions. Even extraordinary success cannot eliminate uncertainty. Wealth cannot prevent illness. Recognition cannot eliminate criticism. Love cannot prevent loss. Youth cannot prevent time. The Stoics, therefore, built their happiness upon something that fortune could not easily take away: their own character. When everything external changes, character remains. When applause fades, character remains. When comfort disappears, character remains. When hardship arrives unexpectedly, character remains. This is why inner mastery creates a form of confidence unlike any other. It is not based upon believing that nothing bad will happen. It is based upon knowing that whatever happens, you possess the ability to respond with wisdom. That confidence cannot be purchased. It cannot be inherited. It cannot be borrowed from another person. It must be forged slowly through countless ordinary decisions made when no one is watching. Each moment, you refuse to react impulsively. Each moment, you choose integrity over convenience. Each moment, you release resentment instead of feeding it. Each moment, you accept reality instead of arguing with it. You become a little freer. The world may still be unpredictable. People may still disappoint you. Plans may still fail. Loss may still arrive without warning. Yet beneath all of that uncertainty stands something increasingly unshakable. You. Not the frightened version controlled by every opinion. Not the distracted version chasing every desire. Not the exhausted version seeking validation from people who cannot provide lasting peace, but the disciplined, thoughtful, resilient self that the Stoics believed already exists beneath layers of fear and habit. This is the person they spent their lives trying to awaken, and perhaps that is the greatest truth of all. Emotional freedom is not something you discover somewhere beyond the horizon. It is something you uncover by removing everything that never truly belonged to you: fear borrowed from others, expectations imposed by society, resentment carried for years, and the desperate need to control what has never been yours to command. When those unnecessary burdens finally fall away, what remains is remarkably simple: a quiet mind, a steady heart, a disciplined spirit, a life directed by principles rather than impulses. The world will continue to change tomorrow, just as it always has. Fortune will continue to rise and fall. People will continue to praise, criticize, misunderstand, admire, reject, and surprise you. None of that needs to determine who you become. As the Stoics understood centuries ago, your greatest victory was never meant to be over other people. It was always meant to be over yourself. And once you achieve that victory, no insult can truly diminish you. No praise can intoxicate you. No obstacle can permanently defeat you, and no circumstance can steal the peace that you have patiently built from within. That is the kind of freedom no one can give you, and no one can take away.